everybody, I'm Deb Luttrell with Stitchin Heaven, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about panel quilts. Panel quilts are really great fun and fast, and they're just great to work with when you have a few rules to go by and you kind of know what to expect. The panel quilt I have here behind me is our new unicorn quilt. My little granddaughter loves unicorns, and I made this for her next birthday, which I give her a quilt every year on her birthday. But this is a really very special panel that a lot of little girls would appreciate having. This quilt is very easy to make. As you can see, it's just basically borders around this panel. So the hardest thing about making a panel quilt like this is preparing your panel, and this is what I want to just talk to you a little bit about today. Because believe it or not, fabric stretches. And so when the panels are printed and they're put on the bolts, a lot of times they're skewed when they come off the bolt. So you may get a panel and it's lopsided. So what do? Well, the first thing with panels is that you have to get them square. And honestly, sometimes that may mean that you literally need to take the panel and hold it by opposite corners and stretch it until you get it to where it lines up properly. Once you get it lined up properly, then you can cut it down and you can make it square. Like this panel here that I have, let me show you this. I'm just going to show you a bunch of different panels today and some patterns that you may want to look at. This is a Western panel, and we'll just show you a picture of this as we go through the video. But this panel is different because it's got 4 large motifs on each corner that you could use in your quilt, and then it's got these smaller motifs. What I would do if I were going to do something with this panel is I would make these be the center of some squares. You may want to do an Ohio star and have this be the center. Now, these squares measure 4, this one is measuring 4 1/4, 4 1/8, and this is measuring 4 1/8. So this particular one is 4 1/8. This one is, well, it's also 4 1/8. So they've done a great job here by keeping them at least close to that. So what you need to do, what I would recommend that you do, is you plan on this being a 4-inch center of your squares. You've got a little space around all of these. So you could go in, take a 4-inch square up ruler if you want to, or you could do it with a ruler like this and square it up here and then square it off here, trying to keep your motif in the center. Now, you do have to make sure that when you cut for a 4 1/2 inch piece unfinished. So if you're going to make a 4-inch center, you need a 4 1/2 inch piece of fabric to allow for your seam allowances all the way around it. So this one you would come out, and so this is 4 inches here, and then you'd have a 1/4 inch here, and then you'd have a 1/4 inch here, and all the way around it. So you would cut out all the centers, and then you'd start building that into your quilt pattern. These outer ones they're measuring about, now see, this is 8 3/4. So if you do a 9-inch square, then you just have to figure out, you're going to cut a 9 1/2 inch piece. So you make sure that you have a 1/4 inch here, and then you cut up to a 1/4 inch here, so that you end up with a 9 1/2 inch unfinished square for you to start your project with. I want to show you a couple of other things. This particular panel was a challenge because when we cut it off the bolt, there was no wiggle room on either side for us to square up with. So what we did, when you go to square up, what you have to do is you want to fold your fabric, and you want to line up your selvage as best as possible. So you put that up against your line on your ruler, on your mat, and then you line it up straight across the ruler bottom here. And then you take, this is one of the few times that I use a long ruler, but I'm going to take a long ruler and I'm going to try to square this up at 23 inches. So I'm going to cut this up at 23 inches, and that's going to barely catch it up there at the top. And then I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to line that cut that I just made, because that's my squared up cut on my mat. And then I'm going to line this up with a line on my mat, and I'm going to trim this to 23 inches to make sure that my panel is square. Now, most of your patterns are going to call for a 40-inch long panel. So then I would take the fold and I would put it up against my first line on my ruler, because these lines are square, remember? So I would square it up here and I would square it up here. And then I'm going to cut this one. If I cut it at 22, that's going to give me a 44-inch length that I will have to deal with. If I can't cut it at 22 and a half because I get into the selvage over here. So I'm going to have to cut this at 22 to square this up. Okay? If I do that, I'm going to lose part of my star here. So I have to make an adjustment for that, just about 1/4 of an inch, so that I want to make sure that I don't cut off that point. All right, so this one is a little more challenging. Now, what I'm going to do here, you know what? This is what I'll do. I'm going to cut this a single layer on both sides. So I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to line this up on the line here, and then I'm going to cut a quarter of an inch away from these stars. And that's going to go right on the selvage, because I need to have that seam allowance for my stars. Then I'm going to turn it the other way, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to cut 1/4 of an inch away from my stars. So basically you're cutting off the selvage, but you just can't willy-nilly do it. You really have to figure out what the best way is. Then once you figure out what you've got to work with, you remeasure this and you adjust your pattern accordingly. How do you adjust your pattern? Almost all of these patterns, and I'm going to just show you a few here. Mountain Peak Creations is one of my favorite companies for panel quilts. Another great company is a company called Creative Solutions, SEWLUTIONS. Most all of these patterns, when they're telling you to use panels, realize that you have adjustments that you have to make. You make those adjustments in the first border that you sew. If your panel is a little bit short, you're going to make your first border a little bit wider. If your panel's a little bit long, again, you're going to adjust for that in your first border, making it a little shorter or a little wider as needed. And then your project will come out based on the measurements that your pattern gives. So just remember those things when you're starting to use a panel. Just a couple of other things I want to show you guys. There's been a lot of change in fabrics lately. Used to, we only did screen printed fabrics. Now we're doing digital. A lot of these panels are created using digital photography. This is one from Hoffman that we'll show you, one of my favorites. But you'll see that the colors in the digital prints are brighter and there's more colors to be used. Another one that I have that is just dynamite is this little fox print. Now you could take any of these patterns that I've shown you and you can make a really nice project using this little fox print. The bluebird on this print is just amazing, and it's got a little star right there at his beak where he's talking to the fox. So anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed learning a little bit about panels today. And if you have any questions or comments, just be sure and note them below. We're going to include the links to some of these products that I've shown you if you're interested in doing a panel quilt of your own. Please subscribe to our channel. And I'm Deb Luttrell with Stitchin Heaven. I'll see you next time.